Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Sport and Rec Committee meeting. Also want to welcome, we've got two youth councillors here. We've got Christian, is that correct, Wave? Chris Leaper, and I was just commenting before, your brother's been on the same spot not so long ago. And we've got Samantha, welcome. No apologies, but just note that the Worship Mayor is on leave of absence on council business. And confirmation of order of business as it is an agenda. There's not too much to go through, but there's a large document when we get to the AMP. We've got public forum today. We've got three presentations. First up, I've got Tony Fitzwater, who's going to speak on Andrews Field. Welcome to the table, Tony. Yeah, jump, grab a spot, and just a reminder, you've got 5 minutes, and then there may be some questions. But don't be upset if there aren't any questions. This means you've presented very well and everyone knows exactly what you're saying. Just when you're ready, and just there's a little button there.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you for the opportunity to present to you. I did hope to have a PowerPoint presentation, but I've just run out of time. I'm talking about Andrews Field up the brook. I'll just paint you a bit of a picture. I'm a 40-year stakeholder up the brook. Grew up there as a kid, and I've seen the changes over the past 40 years, which is fine. Change is fine. Except I think it's getting to a state now, change that it's just there needs to be some belts and braces around it, perhaps. I remember going up to the Brook Sanctuary when I was a kid, taking a billy up there, and I could go up the sanctuary no problem. Andrews Field was a big field, no problem, soccer field. The Charlins Field was full of pines. We used to trap possums up there as kids and sell them as pocket money. So I have history up there, 40 years of it. And I brought two houses up from where I grew up. So I'm quite invested in the place. Andrews Field, I've seen it go from a massive soccer field, which was great. It used to have lights, used to have 6 lights up there at night. People used to practice soccer. Good as gold, not a problem. RDA wanted a third of it, or the Organic Gardens went in, not a problem, fine. The RDA came in and took about a third, fine, good as gold. Recently the new pipeline went in there, and they dumped all the pipes on there to put new pipelines in. Needed to be done. After that, there was some talk about what's going to happen with the field, there's the car park gone in there, kind of fine, it's all right, we're happy to share. The thing is, I want to share with you is that the residents up that stretch are happy to share that park, not a problem. I've spoken with the 5 houses directly across from Andrews Field, including myself. It's not a problem about sharing. Car park's gone in there for the mountain bikers, kind of fine, we're getting used to it. The last third of the field, there's a big circle in there for who knows whatever reason. Not happy to share. It's gotten to the point now that the people up there are really starting to get quite annoyed and angry about what's happening with Andrews Field. We feel that the last third of that field has been taken up by a circle with massive trees. Some of them, there's about 2 or 3 dozen trees, massive trees being planted in there. Some of them are going to grow 12 by 12 and 12 metres by, they're going to be hedges, 12 metres, they're going to be massive. This causes a problem for the people up the brook in Andrews Field with shade, dampness, moisture, light. That's secondary. The primary issue here is that we want some green space. A lot of people there have had used to the green space. There's been 3 other stakeholders take a stake in the field. As we said, fine, happy to share. But the thing that, and I've got the full support of the 5 houses, I've been to the residents along there, and they all say the same thing. I said, I'm going to the council on Tuesday, I'm going by myself, I'm representing myself, but this is what I am saying, that we want that third of the park just left as it was. Do you agree? And absolutely, without a doubt, they said, we support exactly what you're saying. They said, we just want it the way it was. And what that means is that last third of the field, to remove those big massive trees out of the centre of the park, remove some of those big massive trees along the side by the river and by Showlands Hill, put something smaller in, put some smaller natives, not 12-metre trees that the branches and the trunks are going to cause, in the winter, is going to cause a big shadow over the park. Up the brook, we have, one of our problems is in the winter is lack of light and sun. The council have done a great job by ripping all those pines all those years ago. Fantastic. We've got more light, we've got more sun, we've got, the place can dry out. With those trees going in there, it's just going to turn that park into a boggy mess. The other thing I'm concerned about is the lack of consultation around this. There was one meeting a year ago up at the park. Some guy, Pletherin, I don't know who he is, I don't know if he's in this room, don't know. And with the locals, talking about a draft for that area to be what it is now with a circle and trees and all that. And I wasn't there, but the conversation that was had was the locals weren't happy with it, but the guy stated that, it's just an idea, it's just a draft. Then all of a sudden, boom, there's a circle there. There's big trees gone in. No further consultation. Is that me?
Yeah, well, finish off
So I see some solutions, okay? That's the problems. I see some solutions. Solutions is to rip those trees out. They're still young, they're still in hibernation right now. I mean, I know there's been some secret talks, well not secret, but private talks between the end house owner and someone from the council. They've sort of reached an agreement apparently. And this is another thing, what's this secret end of house talking with the guide dude thing, I mean, let's get it out in the open, Apparently there's been some agreement that leave the trees in for a year and see how it goes. Well, sorry to be cynical, but we kind of know what see how it goes means, See how it goes means next year they'll be there, if I'm to be blunt. It's just buying time. So my solution, rip all those trees out, they're still young enough, replant them somewhere else, regrass that whole third of the field, put some natives in front of that car park, those car park wooden trunks, fence it off so that the mountain bikers can come in, park there, not a problem, come in there, park there. That 1/3 of the park is left with a big green open space, no circle, small natives parked all around it. The mountain bikers, when they come in, they can go down through the gully, up to the skid site, which is up there, which they put a shipping container in there, by the way. Does anybody know the process that happened about that, how the mountain bikers were allowed to put a shipping container in there? But it's another issue, mountain bikers up there. I can talk about that too. That's one issue. That's one solution. They can come up through there. The other,
Tony, we're just over time, so I'll just get you to sum up.
That's it. Okay, and then the final one, they can come in and they can go all the way down the side of Andrews Field to the start of Codgers and work their way up. There is a solution. There is a way to do this where everybody gets a win-win.
Thank you, Tony. Thank you for your presentation there. Any questions? I've got Councillor Dalberg.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Tony, thanks for your presentation. I'm new to the committee. So you're third of an area. Give me an idea. Can I kick a ball with the kid? What can I do?
Now?
Yeah.
No, you can't. There's trees in the way. The circle idea is meant to have these big glorious trees around it that people are meant to hang out in the middle of. It's naughty land. It's not going to work, It's too small.
So my question then is that's the available park to you, then that's the available park in your area?
Yeah, it's just across the creek.
And you need to come to town for something bigger?
No, I just cross the creek straight over and pretty much into it.
Perfect area for playing with kids. Thanks, Tony.
Yeah, and the other issue is Betsy Eyre Park too, which is just down the road, which has turned into, it's not usable. It's turned into a mud quagmire by people parking their big SUVs there, taking their push bikes off and going up the hill. It's dangerous. They're parking on both sides of the road. There's people running across the road, biking directly towards oncoming traffic, i.e. myself and my neighbours. It is dangerous. That whole Betsy Eyre Park needs immediate attention.
Any other questions? Councillor Courtney.
Thank you, Mr Chair. Through you to Tony, thank you for your presentation.
Sure.
Tony, we needed to know this morning. We really did. Because if my memory serves me right, we were going to have a third, at least a third, I can't be absolutely sure of that, but we were going to have some green space left there. No question about it, in my mind. So if that hasn't happened, I haven't been up to see, but I'll be going, and so will other councillors, I feel sure, because we need to see this, we need to be aware of this, so that we can assess whether that's exactly how we felt it was going to be.
Yeah, thank you very much. And technically it probably is a green space. I don't know the technicalities around it, but from a practical living reality, it is not a green space. It is a third of a park that has a big circle in it, and it's going to have massive trees that's going to be of no use to neighbours or residents. No practical, real use.
Thank you. Any other questions? No, thank you, Tony. You put across
Thank
very
you.
well.
Cheers.
One quick question, one quick question from me. Betsy Eyre Park.
Yep.
So I mean that's green space, but it's taken over by cars parking at the moment, and hopefully they'll move up the parking spot created. Is Betsy Eyre Park any good for the creation?
I don't think so, because there's two roads on each side and there's a river. It's dangerous. And Betsy Eyre needs to be fenced off. So to make it safe, it needs a fence along the Brook Street side, and it needs a fence along the Brook River side. But the congestion and the traffic up there now, it's not an enjoyable space to be.
To use that space instead, families have to cross the roads any direction to get to that park. They have to cross.
Beg your pardon?
Betsy Eyre Park, it's a bit inaccessible. Is that what you're saying, with the roads and creek either side?
Well, there's roads, there's creek, but it's not an enjoyable space to go because of the amount of traffic up there now. It's like zoom, zoom. There's always cars going, but it's not a Brook Park anymore, you know.
Thank you, Tony. Thank you. Thank you for your presentation.
Cheers.
Very good.
Thank you.
Thank you for that. Welcome our next public forum. We've got Murray Cameron and Malcolm Saunders of the Champion Green Facilities. Welcome. Thank you, Murray. Malcolm, I'm aware you have presented in the past.
Partially.
Some while back. And today you're updating us on your progress.
Yep.
Thank you. And I see you have a Champion Green Facilities Committee. Are you representing any other cycling groups or sporting communities?
We definitely are. Look, thank you for allowing us to talk this morning, and thanks to the councillors and council staff that have turned up to listen, because I know I can see lots of faces that have probably heard us going on. But, you know, we're a pretty passionate pair that are seeking some facilities and extensions to Champion Green for the future, for the kids and old people and young people and those with disabilities, etc., into the future, not just for the now. And you know, as most people know, we've already got a really nice facility, and thanks to the council for the velodrome. Just a bit of an update then, if those who've heard it all before, please just let it run over, and the others get a bit of an update. I have circulated something, you may have a sheet here, at the Saxonfield committee meeting just recently. That same set of questions were delivered. And just all it is, we want to sit down and talk with people. We've got a pretty strong knowledge now and got a base of several sporting codes with us, and we just want to sit down and talk about where we're going. So far it's all us going to you, going to them, Saxonfield Committee, Nelson Council and Tasman Council. But anyway, probably the very first item that's on there was what are your future plans for the Link Road? Now, we've heard about it, we've seen no planning whatsoever, the Link Road from Champion Road through to the Saxonfield. And all we know, it's a proposal that's going to be around about $1 million. It's set for 880,000, but we all know how things blow out. And we already quite sincerely think it's a complete and utter waste of time and money, and we reckon that we could save you more than $1 million, because by the time that road comes out, you're going to have to put a roundabout down there by the main Stoke Highway to get the cars back out of there again. So you're looking at $2 million. So everyone's into cost saving. Well, come and talk with us. We've asked Saxon Field Committee to do that. We've got proposals, we've got plans, we've got ideas. As fresh as last Wednesday, we talked to Garran College. They do not know anything about it. At the moment, there are about 30 odd cars, kids' cars, students' cars, parked along there where the road would go. Those cars then will be obviously relocated out down to Champion Road and make it just another big cluttered mess going down Champion Road. These are the practicalities that haven't been thought about. Garran College personnel, the principal in particular, was gobsmacked. He had no idea that there was going to be anything happening, and yet it's on plans to be done. I think Stuart, who's done it? Davies, Shane Davies has planned it. Is Shane here today? Shane's planned it. We haven't seen the plans, we've got no idea. So we'd like to have some dialogue, and we'd want to sit down with a couple of councillors and a couple of personnel and show us the plans, talk to us. Because we do represent the sporting groups there. They've given us the mandate. Sure, we're a voluntary group, but that's how organisations start. And we're just doing things for the future. So I'll leave that part. Malcolm's more passionate on this one than I am, actually. But I'll just hand you over to Malcolm to add another couple of bits on that one, and questions just when you're ready.
Yeah, the Link Road question, I raised it about 2 years ago and outlined my concerns, and I just don't see it fitting in very well with the velodrome and the numbers there that are utilising that facility and the rest of the area. On a Saturday morning, there would be, I don't know, 400 to 500 kids playing football on the Avery Green area. And the parking is astronomical. So I don't see how that can fit in with a link road going past that facility, let alone the velodrome. I favour a bit of a concourse outside the velodrome, so there's some open space there that people can move safely between the Champion Green area, the rugby league fields, the baseball field, and the velodrome. So that's my thrust on the link road. I've said to Glenn Thorne, the TDC reserves guy, that we're more than happy with the parking area that's been put in at the southern end of the velodrome. Something similar at the northern end would be absolutely ideal, and a concourse through the middle.
A lot less cost.
If there's a concern about access into that area, I understand that the link between Hill Street and Suffolk Road is planned, possibly approved, and I think a connecting inroad at the through to the athletics parking area would be a good alternative, because that area is not very well used at all. So why double up with a through road, which will become a bit of a rat run? I'm sure of that. You only need to look at the traffic going down Champion Road now. Took me 3/4 of an hour to get into Nelson this morning. So it's a bit of a 1-2 that we're in a bit of a catch-up mode here, trying to rectify something that is not really satisfactory.
Councillors and council personnel, this is the kind of thing that we've rolled out for several times now, but we've had no one come back to roll anything back. We don't know what your thinking is. We've got no idea of planning or thinking. We just see a figure set out on a budget scope, and that's about it. So we would really like to talk about it with you, and you've already heard Malcolm, he's got some ideas. We've got people who have got landscape plans all sorted. We've got a lot of things that can cut a lot of costs, I tell you. Look, those next couple of ideas that we've got down there, and I won't bore you to tears and go over them and over again, but if you put your link road in, you might as well scuttle the next couple of ideas, because we have an idea of having a facility there for the future. And there's a lot of people really interested, a lot of sports codes and outsiders. Cycling New Zealand, for instance, would like to see a cycling hub here in Nelson. Need some facilities though, mate. You've got to have them, they said. Lots of sporting codes want to have national and international meetings and things here. No, nothing there, only a gravel at the moment. But we know these things will come, but there's got to be someone driving it, and I guess it's us. By the way, if people come and talk to us, we have got some significant interest in sponsorship and funding, but no one's bothered to talk yet. And we're quite sincere about that. So please, a couple of councillors, a couple of people from the council, please make time to talk with us and we'll share what we've got. And we've been working quite extensively on this. So anyway, the other things are all listed down there. I don't think we'll go, but we'd love any questions, please.
Thank you, Murray and Malcolm. Any questions around the table? Councillor McGurk.
Yeah, thanks through you, Mr. Chair.
Fine.
Thanks, Murray. Welcome. Appreciate it. During the long-term plan process, we had quite a few submissions from different groups about different ideas. Some of them are direct conflict to some of the things you're talking about as well.
Yep.
Are you talking to these groups, or are you aware of the other?
We don't know who's putting a submission in.
Yeah.
But I guess athletics, definitely. Waimea Athletics Club, there's other athletics people interested. They want a circuit put in there so that they can attract national and possibly international 1K meets. The inline skating, they want to get out of Tahuna. They've got a submission in, a very strong one. Mm-hmm. The guy from inline skating is very strong as far as our meetings that we have. He's always there. He's made up plans. He's a design, what's he doing, Alan? He's an architect and he's designed plans already free. So I mean, everything's all there. We believe there's a lot of schools that are interested. That Garran College right next door, they're just mad keen to get something going and develop there. So, plus all the other schools, there's about 4 or 5 schools in that region. So, yeah, there's baseball. They've been wanting something for quite a long time. There's rugby league, wanting something for quite a long time. Of course, the cycling fraternity. Some parts of the cycling fraternity are all very happy with the velodrome, and we all are.
Just conscious of time-wise, so I'll just keep the answer fairly concise. I've got any more questions there?
That'll do for the time being.
Councillor
Fulton. Thanks, Brian.
Just really quickly through the chair, thank you. I'm just a little bit perplexed by the link road. You're saying it's of concern for you both. Is that because of increasing congestion?
Well, that's why we want to talk with you people, so we can share it. I mean, there's not enough time. Every time we have one of these, there's never enough time. Do you know anything about the planning of it?
I haven't seen details.
Thank you. That's all I need to know, because we don't either. And if you don't, and Shane Davies has done a big design plan up, does anyone know? Andrew?
Yes, we've seen it.
We haven't seen it.
Malcolm,
we haven't seen it. Not that we have to see
Sorry,
it.
Malcolm, we have, the plans have been seen. I've sat with you and you've presented some to us, Saxon Committee, so there's been a bit of time there. So I think that we've done fair to say they haven't seen the plans, but
we haven't.
We're happy to sit down further on that.
Right.
So we Councillor Fulton, any other questions?
I just think that if you could actually put in writing what your concerns are, that would be helpful, because you talked for 5 minutes, but it wasn't clear to me what your concerns were. Apart from, it sounds like congestion is your concern.
Yeah. Some two-way consultation.
So
sit down, time to talk, and we can have a bit more time to do this and share.
No, I understand. I thank you for you got some good questions here to the point, and I'll get back to you, or we'll get back to you. Oh, good. But you've raised it, the concerns there, talking about the facility and the ring road and the access of rubber being a straight through.
Yeah. Well, that road would probably scuttle all the other initiatives.
All right. I'll be in touch back and I'll have a chat with staff as well and we'll get a bit more,
Thank you, Tim.
more feedback. I am interested in what you have to say.
Yes.
I just one comment. We've obviously as a council been in contact with various cycling groups and clubs, so it's not decisions that progress plans haven't just come about, they've come with a fair bit of consultation and feedback. And you were mentioning you're representing some of those clubs. Any particular cycling groups that you're speaking on behalf of?
Both of us are in the Tasman Wheelers Club. The Nelson Club, who've got 1 or 2 registered riders, is still a club.
Yep.
They have been approached, I don't know what, 2, maybe 3 times to be part of it.
Club's that, sorry?
The Nelson, with the cycling Nelson, been approached to become part of this Champion Green facility, and they said no, they don't want anything much to do with it.
Okay.
So we're the largest club. There's over 200 riders in our club, representing the cycling fraternity at this point in time. But we're open. Well, I mean, we want any other cycling clubs that want to turn. If the mountain bike club want to turn up, because one day there'll be mountain bike races on the track.
Think that we have been in touch with various cycling groups. There's a lot of groups
Which ones,
involved.
Tim?
We've got with Tasman Wheelers and Cycling Nelson, etc.
Well, there's no more.
No, there's more to than that. There's more to that. But I'll have some chats with yourself and with staff. I'm sure be happy to, and get any feedback, take on board.
Thank you.
One question there from Councillor Barker.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Chairman. A very quick question. Yes or no answer is probably all that's needed. Are you happy to talk to the chairman later? I'm interested to know what all these sponsorship proposals and opportunities are at. Will you please tell the chairman after the meeting?
Thank you. That's all we need. We need a green light.
Thank you for your time. We'll be back.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks, Tim.
Cheers, Murray. Cool. Thank you. We've got the final public forum is James Skolczyk, if I pronounced that right, and Erica Richards. And you're involved with Vertical Limits, or the owner of Vertical Limits.
Yeah.
Thank you, Zay. So you've got 5 minutes, and once again, if you don't get any questions, it's because you presented very well, and we know exactly what you're.
I'm sure I'll get lots of questions.
Fire away. Thank you.
Yeah, g'day. My name's James Skolczyk, and this is Erica Richards. So I bought Vertical Limits, and I started at Vertical Limits in May 2016. It was. So, Vertical Limits, is the indoor climbing facility in Nelson, if anyone's aware of it. It's by Countdown, down behind the old Salvation Army building on Vanguard Street. So yeah, I took over in May 2016 and it was in quite a bad state. It didn't have a real amazing reputation in the community, and it didn't have I do a lot of whitewater kayaking and extreme sports, and I know a lot of the outdoor education teachers in the region at the high schools, and they were feeling quite uneasy about the situation there and how it was run, and were concerned about the safety of their students. So I took over, and with a team of local climbers and volunteers and staff from the Polytech and at the high schools, we completely transformed the place and tried to make it kid friendly. We've got programs from 4-year-olds, and I think our oldest member's 82. So we cater for a real wide range of people. So just quickly on myself, my background, I've got a qualification in youth and children's work and community development. I've worked in America and the Philippines, and before I was at Vertical Limits, I owned a small construction company in Nelson. So why I'm here today is, I suppose what we've done in the last couple of years, we've started kids programs. So we started a kids program on a Monday night for primary school age kids. That just went mental. We were getting up to 30 kids on a Monday night for 2 hours. So we changed it up, and we now have 4 kids programs. We have a program for 4 to 7-year-olds on a Tuesday afternoon. Monday night we have the primary school group, and on a Tuesday evening we have an intermediate age program, and on a Wednesday night we have a youth program as well, which is starting to really grow. We've got previously had the 2 New Zealand champions, under-18s, both male and female. The under-18 female, she competed in China at World Games, World Champs, and also our under-18 male got an invitation to compete in the Australasian Champs. So we've got some real talent in Nelson. We've got 3 girls currently in the top 10 under 16 in New Zealand. We also do stuff for the DHB and work with kids with mental health problems. We've got social workers that come to the climbing wall and take their young kids climbing. On a Thursday night we can have anywhere from 30, 40, sometimes even 50 local people climbing. We've got 336 members, I think, at the moment.
58 to be specific.
358?
Yeah.
Okay, sorry, it's gone up since last time I looked. So some of them are members that they'll pay like a set amount for an annual amount of time. Others will have like a concession card and they'll just swipe that when they come in. So we totally believe in what we're doing. We've got 2 staff, me and Erica. Erica's part-time. And we've got a huge amount of volunteers right through from the Polytech students that are studying outdoor recreation and need to get time and experience working in the rock climbing industry. So they help out a lot with our kids programs. Right through to people route setting and so our biggest problem, so we totally believe in what we're doing. We think we're doing an awesome thing for the community. As a business, it covers its costs, but it doesn't make a huge amount of money. So our biggest problem is that Gibbons Construction have bought the building last year off Gear Thompson in November, and then told us that they were going to not renew our lease, which expires in December, and they're going to applied for a resource consent to build a Briscoes and a Rebel Sports in our location. So we're going to have to relocate. So we've spent a lot of time trying to find a new location, and we totally can't find anything. We need a building that's fairly high. We've got problems with the cost of rent or a lease, the cost of buying a new building, and also car parking is a huge issue for us. So I have, last year I purchased a property in November in Vanguard Street, number 78, and it's opposite the New World Supermarket. And it's got an old house on it at the moment, and we were looking at redeveloping that site and trying to build a new climbing wall. But with the cost of building, we are really struggling to be able to build a new building on that site, and then the fit out for a climbing facility is pretty expensive. And so through the schools and local people involved with council and our members and people that use our facility regularly, I've been dragged along here.
So I'm just conscious of time.
Yep.
Time, we'll just come on to 5 minutes and I'll get you to sum up there.
Yeah, so pretty much just sort of trying to seek council support really to be able to build a new facility, either at our site, it's in Vanguard Street, or at Saxton's Field or something like that. Yeah, so hopefully you might have received a whole heap of letters and stuff from the schools and different groups that use our facility.
Yeah, if I can just add in, I do think it's a pretty important thing to look at keeping our gym in the central business district. I think it really adds a lot to our local community. We get a lot of our climbers who are school kids, who are walking in, who are riding their bicycles in. It also just creates a really nice feel for that local community. We've got lots of our customers end up being backpackers, travelers who are at youth hostels. I really feel like, if possible, keeping it in the central business district does add to the vibrancy of Nelson. We've written a letter here. Please forgive our kind of, it may seem a little unorganized. We just became aware of this meeting late last week, so we've tried to throw things together on short notice, and we realize that this is the beginning of a conversation. We're not quite sure where it will lead, but we definitely are pretty aware that we are going to need the support of outside people. The amount of support that the community has shown us already is pretty staggering, and that goes from businesses who have given us verbal agreements for support in all sorts of different ways. That goes to our climbers.
I'll just get us a tie up here, because I'm sure you'll be wanting a few questions if you are, so we've just gone over time. But any questions?
Yeah, go for it.
Councillor McGurk.
Yeah, thank you, Mr Chair, and through you. Just so I'm clear, just reading the written letter that you've sent to us. Am I clear in thinking, saying or believing that you're wanting $1 million?
That'd be awesome.
Yeah.
Or even just like...
So, yeah, that half that goes towards the building, the other half towards the facilities inside, but roughly that's the number you're looking at.
Yeah. It's going to cost over $2 million to create a new. We do have, like, I've approached Nelson Pine. I had a meeting with them, and they have said that they'd be willing to give us all the materials at cost. A local concrete company has offered to give us a whole heap of free concrete and the rest at a heavily discounted rate. We've got a free architect, free engineer.
You've got this in here.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr Chairman. Yeah, thanks, guys. It sounds like it would be good to see your facility continue. Seems to be a lot of people enjoy it. We do have a process. It's very hard ad hoc to approach things like this. There's a process for seeking funds from council, and it's not always that quick. You've got to wait for the application to be called and the processes to go through. So it could very well get support at that time. Right now, very difficult. Another question I have is in relation to actual rock climbing activity itself. Does it have to be inside? When you're rock climbing in the elements, you're out there and the snow and the ice and everything else and everything. Can you build one until you get ready just outside, a wall that you could start on?
Not really. Like the health and safety side of it is a real issue outside, and obviously the wear and tear on equipment and the elements is huge. And like we get a lot of people, like on a rainy day, our facility will be packed out. Or even this summer I was really surprised. We had a heap of hot days in a row, and then we were really busy. People just wanted to get out of the sun.
Thank you for that. Any other questions? Councillor Courtney.
Thank you, Mr Chair. Through you to James and Erica, thank you for your presentation. Are you wedded to the idea of a new building? I mean, do you have to have a new building? You're operating now with an existing building, aren't you, with your facility, with your equipment in there?
No, we don't need a new building, but there's just nothing available. Like I've spent hundreds and hundreds of hours looking for a new building, or a new building to come out of. I've even approached businesses that I thought their building might have been suitable to see if they were maybe moving on or wanting to end their lease. But I've been everywhere.
Thank you. Any other questions, Councillor Courtney? Councillor Fulton?
Yes, thank you for coming in today. How many floors or how many stories do you need? Is that partly why it's so hard to find an existing building?
Yeah, at the moment our highest climb's 9.9 metres. If we were to build a new building, we were hoping to go 9 metres stud height with 12 metres in the apex. I was hoping to go higher, so rock climbing's now in the next Olympics in Tokyo, and it's to meet all the regulations for a rock climbing wall for Olympic standards, it needs to be 15 metres. So I was hoping to go that high, and we'd be the only facility in Australasia at the new standard. We'd definitely be the only one in New Zealand, and we'd have the opportunity to have national and international events in Nelson.
Thank you for that. Yeah,
That's if you went to 15 metres.
Yeah.
Yeah. And in terms of the Vanguard Street site, just through the chair, just one more question. In terms of resource consents for that height, is that possible?
We've got a height restriction of 12 metres, and I've spoken to Jennifer in council. I'm not sure what department she's in, but she was quite supportive of what we were trying to achieve, and she didn't think getting a resource consent to go the extra 4 metres, she didn't think would be a huge problem for our site. Our site is in a commercial or industrial zoning, and at the moment we're in the same zoning and we're only moving 300 metres up the road. So she kind of said it's like for like, so there's no reason why a resource consent wouldn't be granted for that.
Thank you for that. No, thank you, James and Erica, well presented. What I'm happy to do is have a sit down with you, have a read of this, and have a sit down with you if you like.
That'd be awesome.
Give me a call or an email or contact the council staff, and so I can get a better idea of what you got. But I think it's explained there, but if a few questions that more of us may have later. Thank you.
Great, thank you for your time.
Thank you. Thank you, council. That ends our public forum sessions. Let's move on to confirmation of minutes. These are on pages 5 and 11. Thank you for that. I have a seconder. So it's Councillor Delberg. So it's moved Councillor McGurk, seconded by Councillor Delberg. Obviously no corrections. Those in favour? Aye. Those against? Carried. So it takes us to the chairman's report. You'll see there's a added table document there. Not sure if you've had a chance to read that. As you're reading that, I'll just quickly summarise there. So it's more of a case of just updating what's going around and taking a bit of a leaf out of Councillor Barker's comments a few while back. And it's good to try and praise some of these sporting communities and groups and achievements that often go under the radar, and always trying to add on what's currently happening in the news. Some of us may read in the paper, but just to, as you know, a lot of the sporting codes have come to an end with this winter season, and there's a bit of a break time for maintenance, not much time for getting to maintain the pitches ready. I see the cricket pitches are starting to get rolled, etc., ready for the summer season. But with this, there's not really a lull. This is actually this time of year. There seems to be a lot of tournaments and expos and events happening. As you know, I've mentioned many a time, I'm a big proponent of secondary school tournaments and local club tournaments here, because they often go for 2 or 3, 4 days, and they bring a lot of people. If there's 100 competitors, it brings their families, the coaches, and they often make a bit of a holiday of it in Nelson. So there's more to it than just a sport, it's the flow-on effects. Some of those things I've been involved in or been kindly asked to come along to and see them in practice. And obviously we're at the Netball International, it's a bit more of a higher premier event coming on, but it's really good to see that a second year running now, the international tournament netball competition there, and you'll see some of the teams in there. You obviously got all the New Zealand teams, Australian teams, South African teams, etc. And I see they're still going on next few days. Advertised just $10 if you go along today, and I think tomorrow it's just sure to go and support that. A lot of other things go under the radar a bit, and they're organised often by a few people at these clubs and organisations, and without voluntary help these events don't happen. But these events often lead on to larger events. You get these local events, and if they perform well, and if we've got good facilities, which I would champion that we have, then often they turn into national tournaments, and you get more people coming in and more exposure, and then even international tournaments. So there's a real flow-on effect there. So it's really praising those volunteers in these clubs and organisations that put that effort behind the scenes to make these events happen. For example, you've got the South Island Secondary Schools Basketball Tournament, and Councillor Delberg will probably know a bit more of that than I will, but they've got a lot of teams coming, several hundred I believe, and they're using the Saxton facilities, and that goes over 4 days. And then you also got the Secondary Schools National Football Tournament, which is also happening beginning of next month, and that's the Jim Wishart tournament, but it also brings several hundred players from around the region, around the greater region, and it's another great one. Target Shooting Nationals, I had the privilege to go along to that just on the weekend, and that was a national tournament. It was Nelson versus, not Nelson, it was North Island versus South Island competition. But you got all ages there, from young to very old, and some of them up to their 40th or 30th tournament. But it has a great atmosphere, a lot of people there, run really well, and at the end of it they name a New Zealand team right here in Nelson, which are competing against an English team. So those sorts of things really make me buzz, a lot of those things just happen only if you're involved in that particular sport, but they're going behind the scenes, and it's really just highlighting how well I believe our facilities are used. And for the Nelson Shooting Club, that's that new facility. It was a year old now, but the talk is around the block is that's the best facility in the country at the moment. And there's a great atmosphere and a real hospitality. So I really hand it to those guys. That's a building that obviously we've helped greatly as a council, but they've stepped up and really contributed in fundraising for that. And as I've mentioned before, they share those facilities with other clubs and events at the cricket next door, and often when they're using the shooting range, they use the cricket facilities as an expo for promoting their products or for meetings, etc., and vice versa. So that space really well utilised. And the other one there is, I'm not sure if you've heard, is the Get Ballsy. It's a charity sporting event coming up, and Ryan and Chelsea, Ryan Stewart, I don't know if you know, he battled with testicular cancer. He plays for the mainland football team, and he battled with testicular cancer just a year gone by. He's beaten it, but he's got a real passion with it, because that's quite obviously a deadly illness, and a real passion for that. So he's organised, him and his wife have worked very hard to organise this event, and you'll be surprised at some of the signings they've got. They've got All Whites, Ben Sigmund, James Bannatyne, Jake Butler. They've got football Fern, Annalie Longo. They've got Paul Eiffel from Wellington, who's played for Crystal Palace and Wellington Phoenix in the past, and he comes over to Nelson each week from Wellington to do some academies. You've got All Blacks, Chris Jack, Corey Jane and Pri Wipu, and you've got Nelson Giants, Sam Dempster and Phil Jones have also played for the Tall Blacks, and they're coming to play this game of football with a round ball, and Anita McLaren Schnauers from Black Sticks, but not just sporting personalities. They've got Kiwi comedian Ben Hurley and Paul Hampton, as you all know, the Victory Boxing, and he got Local Hero Award and I believe New Zealand Hero Award. But that's just to name a few, and a few more are popping up through the grapevine there. But that's another thing, that's coming up in a month's time, 29th September, and that's being played at Trafalgar Park. So there's not many times you'll get those sorts of greats or characters running around chasing a round ball at the same time. But also, what you've seen in the paper, the Marina update, and I think you guys around the table and the council should be very proud of that. With the Marina update, as you know, the summer's gone past, there's been a lot of public rightfully concerned at the congestion, especially come the snapper season and the summer season, the congestion at the ramp is getting more and more popular. But what's been done with a lot of consultation with the Marina and users, and the help of Roger Gibbons has been very helpful with that. As you know, our committee put forward some steps to develop that area to help relieve that. But one of the first things that we put forward was to get that pontoon in. And the idea of that pontoon, if you get a chance to have a look at it, is it's like a hockey stick. And that way, as you trailer out your boat, you don't have to wait while the husband or wife parks the car. You moor it to the side, and the next person go in and lower the boat, and they can moor it to the side and pull the trailer out. So we'll just keep it moving rather than waiting for the person to come back and forth and park the vehicle. That should, I reckon, will solve those issues fourfold. It will help. But if you have a look, it's a long area and it's really well built. They've gone for the concrete construction, very, very solid. There was a bit in the media on that. But that was, just to give a background on there, that was a cost of $375,000 to install, and I'm very happy to say that's been completed extremely well and ready for the snapper season. But there's a few things there to have a look at. So it's just a really bit of a spotlight what's been going on, and hopefully a good spring in the year and summer sports kicking off. Thank you. Councillor Courtney.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I enjoyed your report. That update was very, very interesting, and particularly remarks about the marina down there and the working group and what they're starting to achieve, and we are all excited about that. I was just wondering, did the project, the $375,000 project, come in on time, and did it come in on budget?
No, it was hoping for past summer, I believe, but we sort of delayed it to get it done well and proper, and I believe it's under budget. I'll get confirmation on that. Andrew Peffram will answer that.
Mr. Chair, councillors, our goal was to have the ramp completed by this summer. Right. So we were aiming for September.
Oh, we're on. Oh, well, even better news.
We came in within the budget for the work on the ramp.
Thank you, Andrew. So to answer your question correctly, yes, it was on time for the summer in September, and it was under budget for that ramp. And that's the first of several developments.
It's another piece of good news.
Definitely. I think you're very proud of it around the table for that. Thank you. Councillor Dalberg.
I can second your report, Mr Chairman, and just backing up that joint working group with the health and staff. I think it's just a great concept.
Correct.
And I also think that some of those people have some extremely good contacts to make sure the work does actually happen. And the fact that we've done an extremely good job. And the feedback from me, the people using the weekend, has been superb. And so congratulations to Roger Gibbons and the Marina Development Group.
Yeah, no, definitely a very good point. They've done extremely well, and they've been great, and the staff have been great, and the Marina working party have been great. And if there has been people in the past who may have thrown stones, they've come on board. Roger and the working party and staff have been very good and sit down and work out exactly what the right solutions are. So we as a committee know exactly where we need to move forward, and that's what's happened. Thank you. So I've got Councillor Dalberg's moved to receive Chairman's report. Can I have someone second that?
Happy to second all this good news.
Thank you, Councillor Barker. I'll put it. Those in favour? Those against? Carried. That puts us on to our first and one document for today. We've got, which is quite a large document there, but this is the adoption of the Parks and Reserves Asset Management Plan, pages 12 to 18, but there's also an attachment there that I'll let the staff. So we've got Paul and Rosie presenting. Thank you for that.
Good morning.
Cheers.
Through the Chair, I'd like to introduce the Parks and Reserves Asset Management Plan for 2018 to 2028, and we're seeking its adoption. So after 3 committee workshops focusing on the levels of service, a draft plan was presented to the committee in October. The plan that we've got today shows any changes from that draft, and these changes were a result of the LTP and any updated information. The plan's a working document for staff which guides decisions and commitments to the community, but it also outlines actions to improve our asset management practices, which will help inform the next plan, which we have started working on. Paul has been the author of the plan, so we're really happy to take any specific questions you might have about it.
Councillor Barker and Councillor Courtney.
Thanks, Mr Chairman. Yeah, my first question relates to the people that attended public forum this morning. I don't know if you were both here for that or not, but Andrews Farm Reserve. How have you covered that in the asset management plan in relation to the comments that they made about the work that you've been doing on planting trees? Do you agree with the comments that they made and the assertions that it was not wise? And also, have you consulted with them?
Well, I can answer the first question, Mr Chair, thank you. The asset management plan covers that under the trees section, and trees being maintained. And my view of the trees as being deciduous, they're probably quite a good choice. In winter time, the leaves come off and plenty of light comes through.
So you're telling me you don't agree with what the resident was saying?
With that aspect, I wouldn't agree, no. I think the trees are a good choice.
Has there been any consultation with them?
I'll get Mr Pepperin to tell where.
I see it's listed in the AMP as 2.04 hectares. That's the only mention I can find.
Thank you, Mr Chair. Councillor Barker, I was involved in this project with Ian Wallace, and there was considerable consultation undertaken. We consulted with the Brook Valley Community Group, we consulted with the residents, we consulted openly with people who weren't aligned to groups, the Mountain Bike Club. In fact, the first consultation that we had with the residents over the creek, we put a proposal to them and they asked us to move the car parking and change the vegetation and change the location of the toilet, which we did. And we had to come up with a final plan
which was also in accordance with the wishes of the RDA. And some of the concerns expressed this morning related not to use by mountain bikers, but rather use by the kids from RDA, where we were trying to create a walking area for the horses underneath the shade of these large trees. So I think they're incorrect to say that no one wanted them. We were doing it for the kids to get a better ride. We also were required to create open space for potential expansion of the arena for the RTA. The walking groups were particularly interested in having walking tracks separate from mountain biking, and the Mountain Bike Club changed one of their main tracks so that they would create a walking only area and the mountain biking would be separate. So it's been incredibly complicated, and not everyone agrees with it, but I think we've come up with a proposal which is generally in the best interests of the widest group possible.
Yeah, thank you. I wonder, Mr. Chairman, you live in the area. Some follow-up with the chap who came this morning would be worthwhile, because it seems that he might have missed out on what I'm hearing was pretty wide consultation.
Well, John, Andrew, catch up with Tony, but Andrew's Tony, go up there and have a look. I'm pretty aware of developments happening there.
Mr. Chair, another resident came in, wrote to us last week, and I met him on site, and what I said to this chap, just let us finish the development and just see how it functions when we get to the end of the development. Because if we start changing it part way through for one group, then another group are not going to be pleased, or they're going to want changes as well. So all we ask is just give us the opportunity to finish it. Once the bridge goes in, the mountain bike track will be separate, and I think it will function quite well. I have copies of the plans here if councillors want to see that.
Thank you, Andrew. Any more questions there?
I actually do have some more questions. The next question is on page 82. You mentioned the sport of disc golf in Isle Park, and you acknowledge that it's a very popular activity, and I can vouch for that. It's an activity that families play, people of all ages can play, but it's particularly important for a group of men who are in their 20s and 30s, and it's their one activity that they really enjoy. And it's something that, the only thing I think they do for recreation. So it's very important for this group of people, and it's a growing number. I think that they are very, very good in looking after the reserve. They report any damage to any trees. They report any activities that are taking place that are not right. And I would like to see us support these guys as much as we can, because I don't think that they do damage your plants, as is indicated in the comments in the AMP. So I'm just not supportive of what you've said in the AMP. I would like to see more disc golf included. Have you got any plans for any other disc golf courses at Tahuna or somewhere like that? Because that, as an activity, it's very popular for tourists. Our Isle Park disc golf course is recognised around the world as one of the places that disc golfers come to Nelson when they come to New Zealand. So what's the plans?
Mr. Chair, we agree it is a really popular sport, and we do want to support it. The only comment I've made in the asset management plan is that it's a balance of where those activities go. And in a public garden, you really have to think before you put an activity like that in. It's in there. It's just a note to say in the future those sorts of activities should be checked, and a reserve management plan would really help in planning for future activities like that. With regards to future planning of disc golf, we're not actively looking for areas, but we have been approached by residents, so it's on our radar, and if an area comes up that's suitable, we'd certainly look into it.
Good, thank you. And my final question is about 5,000 members of our community are family members. They happen to have 4 legs. They're dogs. And a lot of people, many families have a dog. It's part of their family. It's part of their recreation. Coming to council this morning, I saw 4 owners walking dogs this morning. It's a really healthy thing to take place. It doesn't even, as a activity, it doesn't even occur on your list of activities on page 410, I think it is, 210. It just misses out. Dog walking is not there. Dog activities. It just seems to have been missed. And as I say, there were 5,500 dogs registered this year. There's a lot of dogs. And what I really just wanted to see, the Mayor and I have been, and Council has had submissions asking for a dog exercise park. The staff have come up with a site for one, which would be ideal, and that was up in Marsden Valley. Perfect site. It's not appearing anywhere. It seems to have dropped off the radar. I'm unhappy that it's dropped off the radar. I'm making the point that there's a lot of people who have their family member, their dog, and they do need some more facilities in my view. You've mentioned dogs once in the report, a positive one, talking about dog heaven at Tuna Beach. The only other mention of dogs in their asset management plan is under the risk area, where you say there's a risk of dog attack. There's no other mention of dogs in the asset management plan whatsoever that I can see. And I think we're missing out on the reality of the fact is that it is one of the most important recreational activities. People sometimes just have a dog for the fact that they have to take it for a walk and they get their exercise. So it's, apart from the love that the dog gives to the family. So I probably missed out this time, but if you're starting work on the next asset management plan, I would want to see more emphasis put onto the fact that dogs are an important part of our community.
Can
you do that?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I appreciate that. I have a dog, and in fact my dog was one of the ones on the beach frolicking around. Page 210, the list I've got there is straight out of the Sport New Zealand, so that's not actually our data, that's Sport New Zealand data. But if I can take you to page 222, under Esplanade Reserves, there is provision for a dog park to be investigated in year 2 and construction in year 3. And we're expecting funding to come out of the dog fee licence account for that as well. I think I have written about it somewhere in this 200-page thing, but I probably couldn't locate it right on the spot.
Thank you for that. Before I move on to Councillor Courtney and Councillor Delberg, good point about the disc sport around Isle Park and potentially and had a few approach. Just raise, and I won't discuss it too much here, but 3D archery comes to me. Marcus had approached me about 3D archery, sort of on a similar vein to the disc golf, and I think you may well whereabouts. So I'll just raise that if there's, and I might sit down and chat with you on that. He kindly took me around to have a go at it, and it's quite a controlled sport where you're shooting with a soft arrow at targets on a short area, and popular. Or he talks about becoming a very popular sport, but needing a space, a bit like the disc in area parks. So I'd be interested in future if there's anything you think, areas that may be valid for that, and if there's anything we could move in that. Might be something I want to bring back to us as a committee, as it's quite a new sport here, but potentially it could well be great for families.
I've met with Marcus a couple of times and had a go as well, and I feel for him because it's quite a hard sell, I think. And when you say archery, people kind of get worried, but I agree with you, it is quite safe. The way that's designed, it has to have a slope behind it, and it's just finding a site is the tricky part. So
I'll take this opportunity then, if you are able to, I'll put a bit of feedback on that and any recommendations, if it is able to move forward to that, and it's something that we can put to the council on a whole, because that could be a good way of making use of some of our reserves. Councillor Courtney.
Mr. Chair, and through you to Paul and Rosie. First of all, Paul, thank you so much for this comprehensive and most interesting report. It's 225 pages. You were saying this thing. And I found it very, very interesting. I want to raise with you the issue of rubbish bins, because people are reporting to me that on a Saturday morning and a Sunday morning, the CBD is looking pretty scruffy with rubbish, and the claims they're making is that we're short, or our policy has changed and we're having less rubbish bins around the CBD and around along the river, the Maitai River, and that kind of thing. Can you tell me whether that's true or not?
I could speak to that briefly through the chair. Just some differentiation there, that the CBD rubbish bins are looked after by the roading crew, so I would need to check in with them to see if there's been any policy change there, but certainly not within parks. But we really welcome that feedback as well. We don't necessarily always know where people want to put their apple core or exactly where they are, so if you are getting that, we're really welcome to, easy for us to just relocate a rubbish bin. So, thank you.
Do you have any view about along the riverbank, along the Maitai?
No, I don't, but I can certainly look in and see where our current bins are.
Yes.
There are certainly bins there.
Yes, but there's not enough, I understand.
Right. Yep.
Some have gone and that type of thing, so it might just pay to check that.
Yes, definitely.
But I appreciate your concern there. Can I talk about toilets? And I'm thinking of the Queen's Gardens, and distressed the other day to go through at dusk and find the Portaloo there on its side. Did a snap and send, and I presume it's up right now. Now, the first concern was there anyone in it? So my partner and I did the search and rescue exercise and pulled that to the fore, found that there wasn't, and so we relaxed. Brings me on to the toilet block for the Queen's Gardens. It's not a good look to have a Portaloo sitting there amongst the gardens, and Paul, I just think we're being very patient here. And my memory tells me that the same contractor that's building the Green Meadows has also been commissioned to build this block of toilets. And I just wonder whether we should be really rethinking that and perhaps putting it out to tender again, because people have been waiting too long to use those toilets. And it's not fair. There's walkers, runners. And to think that we demolished the Suter Art Gallery years ago now, and the toilets were previously underneath those, under the Suter, without any thought at that stage, and this is the community speaking, I'm the messenger, without any thought to, as soon as possible, erecting a new block of toilets or incorporating toilets in the Suter in a similar way to what they were in the past. So can I have some good news on that, please?
It is frustrating, through the chair, and we agree, and I would have to follow up on where that's at, but my understanding is that there have been issues with getting the contract let, and yeah, that's all I can say. Unless anyone else?
Just answering that, Councillor Courtney, and that's a good point. I think we covered that a little while back. We had a new contractors on that, but I think Councillor Matheson's going to help me out there.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Councillor Courtney, thank you for raising the issue, because there is general discussion. The original contractor, it's now changed, and it's, I think, going back out there again for further tender work. And everyone is sad that it's taken so long, but that's where we are. So it's a case of watching the space. But no, it's not the contractor that is involved in the other project.
Was?
No, not anymore, no.
Thank you for that. I appreciate that. Deputy Mayor, I appreciate that. The other one was weeds, and that's in your report here too. And I noticed that Christchurch have put on a second truck to steam kill weeds. They're doing a trial. I notice Auckland are doing a trial. I'm told that Queenstown already do this. Norway, it's the only treatment they give to weeds. So there's a lot of interest in the community at the moment about this. Are you going to run a trial or contemplate a trial?
Well, welcome to answer it. I think Mr. Peffram, you'd answered, that come up a little while back, ever at a meeting or a workshop in regards to weed control and trying to, where possible, minimise. I'll let you answer.
Mr Chair, councillors, we did a trial several years ago. Our contractor, Nelmac, did a trial for 12 months using steam. It only took the top of the weeds, most of them. It would kill minor weeds, but it didn't actually kill the root growth. And it would be similar to using a contact herbicide that wasn't taken down into the root zone. So it wasn't really suitable for our needs. And at the end of that period, it wasn't cost effective, didn't work, and we stopped it. During the LTP process, we were asked to consider reducing our chemical use along the sides of tracks and trails, and that policy has now been implemented with our contractor Nelmac. And so our walking tracks will be maintained along the edges using mechanical means rather than chemicals.
So, Mr Petheram, you've got no plans to have another look at this? Things might have changed, you don't think, or...?
Well, Councillor, we can see what's happened in Christchurch, and if there's anything different, then we can relook at it, but at this stage, no.
Right, well, that was my question. You know, would you seek information from Christchurch, who's just introduced a second truck doing this steam killing of weeds, and Auckland, you know, the findings of their trial would be most interesting, wouldn't they? So you would seek those?
Absolutely.
Mm.
Thanks, Mr Chair. But look, before I get into this thing here, could I ask the staff, 4.4 changes to the draft asset management plan prepared, once it was prepared. You've got a few things there listed. Can you tell us what's actually stands out for you out of those items? And I'm thinking financial summary. One of the things I'd like to know is on the $8 million capital underspend. 840. Is there any impacts for us?
Mr Chair, just before I answer that question, I've got a minor correction that I was meaning to raise at the beginning. In the covering report on the main agenda, 4.2.1, it says funding for mountain biking increased to 190. That really should say by, because those are the numbers that it was increased by on top of the existing funding. So if that makes sense, the word to before 190 should be by. Probably the mountain biking is one of the bigger ones that stands out for me for our activity. There's a large increase, probably over $500,000 of funding for the mountain biking in the first 3 years. In addition to that, another big one was the athletics track being brought forward by 3 or 4 years, and that had to, in order to do that, that's about an $800,000 project. The the cycling shared path work was delayed by 4 or 5 years, so that had a bit of an impact. That's probably the main ones for the budgets that I can think of off the top of my head.
Paul, with that mountain bike one, that says contingent on achievement of outcomes set in the funding, so it's not a guaranteed, but it's on them reaching certain goals and before
that's correct. So
releasing that.
For grants, any grant will write up a funding agreement. There has to be outcomes specified within that grant, and the way the resolution was written is that the funding will be released once those outcomes have been achieved. As far as the underspend, we have a few projects that have been delayed for 1 or 2 reasons. Andrews Farm is one, you know, it's getting a resource consent still at the moment. There's been a few others, but nothing huge, I don't think. Each of those projects maybe 100,000 or something like that.
Councillor, 4.4 were financial summary and risk management. Was that what you were referring to? What was importance or anything?
I was just more giving the staff a chance to give me the feedback that they thought was important before I ask some questions in here. So I'm assuming that we're okay risk management wise. Saxons Field capital works are okay then?
The risk management wise, yes. That's kind of a section that's done in 2 parts. There's a section that's done across all asset management plans, and then there's a section that's specific for the Parks and Reserves Asset Management Plan, and that's in the form of a register. So that's the reason that that's been highlighted here, because that information had come a bit later from the generic section. Saxon Field, the only reason that came in later is because the timing of the Saxon Field Committee was a bit later than the draft came in, so that information just wasn't available. But yeah, we're very happy with the outcome, and the two councils have combined and agreed on it.
The other one I was interested in, just as a straight statement, was with the asset management maturity. I'm not too sure if you're actually meaning the likes of things that get rusty old and become a hazard. And I'm thinking there, I'm into this area here of parks and sports fields, it becomes a major.
Mr. Chair, it's really about our asset management processes and how mature we are in our management of our assets. So how well do we do condition assessments? What are our computer systems like? That's what the gauge of maturity is about. So we're kind of on our way, but for parks, we're probably a little bit behind Stormwater, for example, who have a better register of everything they've got. So we're working through a process, and part of that is noted in the improvement plan. We're currently engaging a consultant to get all our hard services into a RAM database, which will align with roading assets. We're looking at our sporting lights. That work's kicking off in October, all the lights and floodlights in the sports grounds. So we're always trying to improve, and it's just a journey. So hopefully by the next asset management plan, that maturity will just be another step up.
Cool. I'll come back to this once everyone else said.
Thank you, Councillor Delby. We've got Councillor Fulton and then Councillor McGurk.
Oh yes, thank you through the chair. I've got a couple of questions. I've in fact lost my pages, but I'll ask them anyway, and hopefully you can find it. First of all, in terms of walking on page 210, the appendix 9, walking sort of comes out as number 1 in terms of sport and leisure activities in Nelson. And during the long-term plan process, I asked about whether the Brook Sanctuary could be opened up for Nelsonians, and we didn't have the funding to get that through. I think that's since been workshopped. I wasn't able to attend the workshop. How do you, in the plan, look at how the sanctuary is going to operate in terms of leisure and walking opportunities for Nelson residents into the future? How do you see that relationship developing?
So it's Mr. Chair, it's not specifically detailed in this asset management plan, I guess because it's a leased area. I wasn't at that workshop either, so I couldn't really answer that. But we'll be working towards ensuring there's as much access as possible. Someone else might have an answer as to whether there's an agreement in place with them.
I guess I just wonder if it's an opportunity, a little bit like the relationship we have with the mountain bike club, whereby the mountain bike club is creating more mountain bike tracks for Nelsonians to use, and having that resource right at our doorstep. It's currently fenced, but it's not fenced to keep people out, it's fenced to keep predators out. How do we look at that relationship into the future as they build more tracks up through that area, with it being such pristine bush and so close to Nelson? It seems like it's a good opportunity to try and develop a stronger relationship.
Yeah, I agree.
With the sanctuary. Does something need to go into here for that to happen?
I think it's probably a bit late for this one, but it's certainly something we should note for as we move forward to develop the next version, which is which I consider these plans a bit of a living document. So this is a point in time, and even since this was finalised, there's probably a few things that have moved on. So it's something we've got an asset improvement register, so I'll put that into that, and that can be picked up on the next one.
I mean, I just see that it's quite a great synergy in terms of they're actually building the tracks. It saves council hundreds of thousands of dollars in terms of having to develop new walking tracks, and it's so close to our CBD.
I think it's something we can carry on that conversation with staff in the sanctuary, but I think it's sidelined from this really. That's an area we've leased to an organisation, a private organisation, a trust, and they spoke to us on those questions, and it would be a decision that they would make, but it doesn't stop us.
I think they
keep a memorandum of understanding on that, but they gave a clear answer to why they could or couldn't, and what they are doing.
No, they were keen to develop that relationship with us. It was just we weren't prepared to fund it at that point in time. So, so they're keen to develop that relationship. I think quite a lot of the Brook residents are keen to be able to access that area. So it's not.
We'll keep those discussions open.
And next question through the chair. Paddy's Knob Reserve, I know you have 20,000, and I can't find the page now, 20,000 for next year in terms of planning, and then there's $0. Is that because the money will come out of the line item above in terms of reserves development?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, just wanted to check. And going back to Councillor Courtney's questions around use of glyphosate, Andrew, you might like to come back to the table. There's obviously been some quite important news coverage on the issue recently, and times are changing in terms of what people want used in their parks and reserves. Andrew, you mentioned that steam doesn't necessarily kill the root down. I'm not sure that glyphosate does anyway, or a lot of these weeds grow back from seed so quickly that you're just constantly having to, it's not like glyphosate actually removes the problem. It's very important for weed pest management, but in terms of routine use, I imagine that steam might not kill the root, but it might achieve the same outcome.
I'll let Mr. Pefferham answer. So basically, continuation of Councillor Courtney's question, but specifically with glyphosate. I'll get Mr. Pefferham to answer.
Yes, councillors, it's a difficult one because none of us like to use chemicals. We're here for the environmental enhancement of the city, so we struggle. But we just can't get by without using chemicals like glyphosate at this stage. If we stopped its use, it would cost us a huge amount. In fact, we couldn't do it by chemical means. And the question that came from Councillor Courtney this morning is a good one, but we have tried it in the past, and the repeat growth was so quick that we just weren't getting anywhere.
Okay, so was the issue when you used steam that it grew back much more quickly?
That's correct.
And so it was requiring more labour, higher labour costs?
And machine costs. We at that stage, the water, the steam was generated from a water boiler which was taken around, and it was going continually, and it wasn't cheap to operate. And we were virtually having to, we'd worked through the central city, the parks, and we were going and starting again where we'd begun.
So when you look at Christchurch and Queenstown, and I think as Auckland as well, it would be very helpful to see how much their costs have gone up in switching to steam, because if other councils are making that choice, they must either be deciding that that's what their ratepayers want in terms of the additional financial cost, or somehow making it work within budgets. I know you are wanting to try and make it work as much as possible, but I think it's particularly helpful to watch. We had an email with a news item in it, and it's particularly helpful to watch that in terms of growing concern around its use.
Full nod. Just to keep the meeting moving, I think much has been answered in the previous, Mr. Pefferham said he'd follow, see what's happening with Christchurch and other areas and get back to that, so it wasn't closed off, and the feedback was it wasn't a great result when we've done our testing for NELMAC, but it's going to follow on to see what Christchurch so it's not a closed door in that sense, but you've I
think in summary, we hope that it works, so we'll be watching to see if it does.
So I just want to make a final point about that. I think in some countries around, like in Europe, they've sort of switched to actually accepting that, you know, that actually you plant some weeds or some natives or something, so rather than trying to keep it routinely looking weeded, it's actually a change of how we view the edges of our parks and reserves a little bit. So that might be part of the cost cutting, of saving costs, but in terms of actually changing what we see.
What I'd raise is that there's also, in areas of reserves next to your property or the edges there, you can put a flag up, or community residents, you might be a creep near there, can write in if there's an area that they like non-sprayed, and you can put a tag on there, and when your contractors go through, they leave that spot, but on the assumption that the resident is looking after that bit of ground. Is that correct?
Yes, we do that, and a number of people take advantage of that. Just in regards, Mr. Chair, to Councillor Fulton's comments, I've noted what they do in countries like the Netherlands, and it's really a change of mindset. The idea of tidiness has to change, and I think that's what we've got to look at here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Do you want me to move that we receive and adopt? I'll move that.
Yeah, we'll take move to receive. So I'll move that they received.
David, second that. A couple of questions.
We'll put that.
Yeah.
Those in favour of receive, say receive report.
All right.
We're still talking.
No, this is receiving. I'm going to receive the report because the questions come after that. So receive the report, often you can receive the report right at the beginning before we come in.
I was asking questions at the start.
Correct, we are. So the receiving report is not a recommendation yet. So I've got a receiving, want to second that?
All right.
Correct, put it. Those in favour? Aye. Those against? Carried. So receive report. So I still have no questions. We've still got the adopting recommendation of council, which I'm happy that moved, but I'll give an opportunity for more questions on that.
Yeah, I've got a couple of questions from different aspects. First one is on page 48 and talks about satisfaction levels with sports grounds. Is that a new measure, and how did you arrive at the figure? Was it 85%? I think it is.
Yes, that is a new measure through the chair. The only reason I've highlighted it is because it originally said sports code satisfaction. And we talked about that a lot and felt that it wasn't representative of the community. So we wanted the community satisfaction to get a cross-section of users. How we got to 85% is just based on the resident survey response from Parks and Facilities.
Yeah, the reason I'm asking that question is that we get feedback about the quality of sports grounds from different codes and different individuals at different times, and I'm just wondering how. So you've answered the question. Next one is the bubble you've got with renewals and playground equipment. You talked about a bubble in year 3 and I think year 9, and then there's a replacement program as well. How are you going to manage? How does the asset manage that bubble and the plans you've got for or additional playgrounds, I suppose, and community reserves?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. One of the issues we discussed at the workshops was around how we are going to renew this play equipment, and it was just we really talked about the type of equipment we have in Nelson, and that it's a lot of traditional equipment, and we've got a little bit of modern stuff coming through, but not a lot of natural equipment. So the approach is that we will be not necessarily replacing like for like. If we look at the environment of the playground, and if it's all traditional, if there's a seesaw and a slide and a little roundabout or something, merry-go-round, we might take one of them out that needs renewing and put in some stepping logs, or put in something that's of a lower level of service, but also I should say cheaper, but for the kids it's the same level of service really, because they love it. And that was pretty well supported at the workshops. And so the budgets we've got in there are actually less than the value of the actual renewals of the equipment.
Good to know. Other areas I've got questions about is the seats and reserves and walking tracks, picking up on something that in the survey you talked about on the page, walking and feedback I'm sort of getting is as the population olds, one of the barriers is somewhere to just sort of sit and watch as a wandering around, or just a place of passive supervision of playgrounds. What's the in terms of seating? If you specifically addressed the requirement to, well, the expected increase in the people walking, and then their age and their mobility, so the requirement for more seats.
Just while Paul looks for that, we've got an initiative working with the Community Partnerships team, specifically with the Elder Persons Forum and Disability Action Groups, and getting feedback, particularly from their clients, of where they see that need for seating. So park staff do their best endeavour to place seats where they think it's most appropriate, but we're really trying to encourage that feedback from the community to get a better understanding of particularly in Stoke, we get quite a few requests from older people going from the supermarket back to their house and needing a little rest on the way. So we're working quite closely with those different agencies through the Community Partnerships team to bring back some of that knowledge into our assets, so when we are rolling out the seats we've got a better idea of where they go.
Good. And just to add, under the play facilities level of service, we have a level of service that shade and seating is provided in playgrounds, and the performance measure is that 100% of new and renewed playgrounds have shade and seating. So
Right. I was going to come to shade, but you've answered that question. Water fountains or water drinking facilities and playgrounds.
Yes, and that's, as I mentioned before about this being a living document, since I've read that again after this has been printed, I think that there should be one for water fountains being considered as well, and also inclusiveness and accessibility in playgrounds. So those are things that I've noted for the next one.
Yeah. I've still got more. The other one I wanted to, we've talked about the youth facility in Stoke, but it doesn't actually the asset management plan doesn't sort of identify any milestones along the way. Is there a...
I guess the milestones it identifies as the budgets, where the capital money is provided, and that was brought forward through the long-term plan deliberations. So we'd be working to those
yeah, no, I'm just thinking about some sort of concrete, you've got money for it, but what's the money going to get us? Is it in terms of consultation?
Well, we couldn't write that into the plan because
identification of sites, that sort of thing.
Yeah, the engagement's underway, so it's not something we could write into the plan with any certainty because we need to get that from the community.
And the final question is on page 105, you talk about the Rutherford Park playground in the central city. Is there any more work being planned in the life of this asset management plan about that destination playground at Rutherford Park?
Mr Chair, yes, there's funding in for this year and next year, and then the following years as well. There's a considerable amount of money included.
Yeah. But no more, again, it's just a budget line.
At this point, it's a budget line, and there's some discussion around. Some high-level discussion around it being a unique play space with given that it's Rutherford with perhaps a science theme. Yeah.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, Mr Chairman. Just one or two things more. Firstly, I want to add my tuppence worth on the subject of weeds. There are good weeds and there are bad weeds. And the good weeds are ones that you can actually live with. I have bees on my property, and the bees love weeds as much as other flowers. The good flowers, the good weeds. And aparists, particularly urban aparists, are very concerned that the amount of weed killer we use is having a really bad effect on the bees. So I just want to make that point. In terms of using steam, it uses a lot of fossil fuel to get rid of them, so there's always a good side and bad side of things, and there's good weeds and bad weeds. The next one I want to talk about is fly tipping, and it's mentioned in the AMP. There's always, as we all know, to every action is an equal and opposite reaction. And this is what's happening with fly tipping. And the current government has signalled that they're going to put an extra $20 per visit to the tip levy on. We already have huge levies. And particularly for this AMP, I note that you highlight the fact that weeds, not just weeds, and unsatisfactory things are being dropped. I know they've been dropped in Marsden Valley for years. It's going to get worse as the cost of tipping goes up to try and stop things going into landfill. And that annoys me. I'm going to digress a little. We have a very environmentally friendly landfill. It was built to meet all environmental standards, and it can take everything that we can send to it. So I'm looking for balance in the future. The question is, what's the trend at the moment? Is the fly tipping in the reserves bad? It is bad. So we need to take account of that, Mr Chair.
Yeah, I'd follow up on that. It's on page 169, following up your comments. As our charges, would that be fair to see, Mr Pepperham, as our charges increased, more tipping's been happening, or was it not necessarily related?
Councillors, we've felt in the past when we've increased charges that it does occur.
Okay, so I'm sure it does. Now, I want us to think about that, and at the SLT level, we should be thinking multidisciplinary. How are we going to deal with this? Because it's affecting this area, but the other area's got to take its part in it. So I want to make that point.
Especially with our reserves coming under our portfolio, if that's having a real adverse effect, that'd be good to get some feedback and a spotlight on that. Thank you.
And the real concern is that it seems that the levies are going to increase even further. They're already very high. We suffer at the moment a local levy and a government levy, and the government levy is going to increase by another $20 a trip. My final point is a good news one, and it's related to the Mongatapu proposed cycle tourism opportunity. You mentioned it in your report. I think it's a wonderful thing for the cycling fraternity and for tourism. I would like to do it at some stage. What is the situation at the moment? There's nothing in budgets, and it's just supported in principle, is that right?
That's correct, Mr Chair. We've actually had a meeting yesterday with representatives from the Cycle Trails folks, Great Rides, and it's probably something they'd be driving and going to. It would be something that the Great Rides would be driving and going to MB for funding, and when there's more certainty, would be including funding as required. But yeah, we certainly support it.
So is it mentioned in the AMP at all?
It was a very late addition. It's in the table of the cycling. There's a table in there for walking and cycling, and it is included, but it was something that came in quite late, so there's not a lot of text around it at this point.
Okay, so you'll be looking into the future too.
It's on the map. There's a map in there of cycling trails proposed, walking cycling. It's included on that.
That would be good, Mr Chairman.
Councillor Walker.
Thank you, Mr Chair. Through you, I'm just a little bit perplexed. Page 211, resource consents requiring monitoring. Halfway down, we've got discharge to air from a new emergency generator at Nelson City Council. Why do we require resource consent?
Mr Chair, can I have a guess that it's a discharge consent because it's a diesel generator? But I'm not.
It's just that it's in a it's not in a residential area, and 320 kilowatts. No different to a large truck.
It would be a regional rule, so it wouldn't matter which zone it's in.
Yeah.
If you discharge to air, you have to get resource consent. So.
And with a modern generator, and I guess it's the one that's just down in the enclosure down here. It's a modern motor. There's no visible emissions. I just wonder whether it's bureaucracy going crazy on us.
That's probably the Resource Management Act that would dictate that rather than our. There's environmental standards around air quality that we have to follow. And
time to make a change.
We'll have a look at that later on. Okay, thank you. Got someone second that? Second by Councillor Courtney. Before we move that, you've got Councillor Dalby got a question. Yeah, and I'll let you ask questions, then we'll put that to the test.
Thanks, Mr Chair. As I singled earlier, on page 19, we've got here on riparian planting. And when I've been in environment groups, we tend to talk about kilometres. I see we talk about trees. Is there a sort of reason that is 2,000 trees enough or something? It just seems light. But anyway, can you explain?
Mr Chair, that's not a new measure. It wasn't one that I spent an awful lot of time analysing, I have to say, because we were doing a lot of work around amending the other ones. It probably is worth reviewing that for the next asset management plan and seeing if 2,000 is an appropriate number. So we'll have a look at how many are planted up the Maitai and have a look at it, yeah.
Typically when I get that question to me, people are talking, they're running down the riverside, etc. Maybe we are just doing little bits and pieces that need to be done, and that's probably something that needs to be highlighted. Are we solving a problem, or are we just filling things in when we've got time, and how serious are we about this? You've answered my question on that one. So, Mr Chair, the next one really is about the cycling and walking, and I'm more interested in the walking area. I tend to think that's a piece of our community that doesn't get much airway, and I'm picking up on your numbers before on the number of people that walk or for sports or recreation or leisure. Now, you commented before about the dogs. I'm picking up on Councillor Barker's point here on dogs. We just happen to have a grand puppy in the household, and when she turns up here, I get to see what's going on in the community. And you go out any time in the morning or between 9 and 11, I would think every second person's out there walking with the dog. And they probably won't tell you they're walking with the dog for leisure because they just think it's part of the family and we're off for a walk or whatever we're doing. So I kind of think out of that large number of people, 58% that are doing this activity are carrying dogs, and you can probably guess that because in the city we've got, I think, 6,000 dogs registered, reasonably large number. So I'm kind of thinking, when are we actually going to do something positive apart from the back beach, which I walk down on Sundays and see the dogs out there? You've got it highlighted in there on your page 111. We've got it highlighted on 172. Dog exercise park with a nice picture of a walkway down to the beach, which probably isn't going to happen. But, so I really want to know is what's the time frame? This came up when I had our first workshop about 2 years ago with the council. We thought it was a good idea and it really hasn't happened. So on 272, item 611 4.5, time frame for the exercise dog park. Have you got an idea?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, year 2 and 3 is where it's programmed in to be investigated and built. And I guess that one of the reasons it's taken quite a long time is that Nelson, the dog control bylaw in Nelson is quite lenient, and all of our reserves are pretty great for walking dogs and running around with them, many of them off lead, so it has taken a while. But yeah, there's work programmed in for within the first 3 years to investigate and find a location and build it.
That's year 2 and 3, okay. Some of us may not be here. Okay, the item 129, page 129, cycling. You got a track around Trafalgar Park. I'm not too sure if that's actually functioning now, or does that get decommissioned, or do we just...
Mr. Chair, the cycle track around Trafalgar Park, there's money in about year 5 to investigate the future of that. My understanding is that it's not heavily used, but it is actually really useful still for our contractors. So we're not in a mad panic to get rid of it, but there is some funding in there to investigate it.
So the second question on that would be, so it's not actually really for cycling, it's more for users of the park?
I guess it is for cycling, but it's just there, and it's not something we're panicked about removing. It's there, and it's an asset. It's a historical asset. It probably gets a bit of use from time to time.
Thinking more health and safety, that's all as well.
I believe it's the maintenance. The maintenance of park has been extremely useful.
Yeah.
Without that, you're a bit difficult to get in and off without damaging the track or the field on the other side. So it has but we have got money and resource to look into that. Like saying,
more
there's
conscious,
funding in there, yeah.
If we're deeming it a cycle track, then and young people are using, I'm just kind of thinking health and safety.
Sure.
What is the quality of that?
Okay.
From our point of view. Page 145, we'd like to regularly attract national tournaments to Saxon Stadium. My question would be, is the equipment up to national stadium facilities standard? I'm thinking of things like equipment, timing, all that stuff.
Mr. Chair, we maintain the equipment at Saxon Stadium to a grade 3, which is about in the middle of a 1 to 5 scale that the asset management people set, and that gives us the best value for the asset. So we don't. It's not gold plated, but it's
I was probably thinking more of when you have the tournament. There's certain things. Run-offs of court. Just take what's going over at the moment with the World Club Champs over in Trafalgar Centre. You'll see straight away it's run-offs, it's scoring facilities, it's timing, it's that side of stuff there. There's a national or international level. Does someone check that our equipment matches up?
The sports codes generally let us know if it's not, and we work with them to find solutions. It's kind of a moving target at most times, in my experience.
So my question is, if I take the one that's talking here about Saxon Stadium, you are happy that that scoring equipment, etc., is up to standard? mainly because my comments were my information or people feeding information to me about a year ago. It wasn't. I'm just asking, is it as I speak?
Mr Chair, to the best of our knowledge, but we'll look into it. Yes.
And we have Sport Tasman managing.
All I just want to do is highlight it, Mr Chair, and I'll leave it to the staff to find out. That's really what this question's about. 212, and I'm picking up on Councillor Walker's comments here about resource consents. And I do note that we actually have a one for mountain bikes on Codgers. So then the next question I'd have to ask, do the other mountain biking trails need consents?
Mr Chair, that consent was for earthworks to reinstate the trails. It wasn't for the activity of mountain biking.
Okay. And that has been done?
Yes.
Cool. And probably then now on to page 223 and the Tahuna Beach to Great Trail to the airport. I see year 2018-19 we have 800,000 in there for that. Is that project on track?
That's a rock straight through.
I'll let Andrew answer that. I think he's probably had more meetings than I have around it.
Councillors, we've had a meeting yesterday with the Trails Trust, and our recommendation, which they agreed with, was that we spread that 800,000 over the current year and next year, because they are having to do additional work with the golf club, and there's a chance that we might not get that work completed in this financial year. So we're going to spread it over 2 years, so we don't have monies outstanding at the end of this financial year.
So I'm assuming through Mr Chair that would then come up in the annual plan, that changing those that funding around?
Correct, yes, that's correct.
Then just probably leads me to the last point, is the out and about track strategy and the social well-being strategy mentioned on 193, both very worthy projects, and they're both very worthy for the community. Can you give us a wee update on those two items? It's 193 and ours. Out and about, I read a wee bit there, and then also the social well-being, both very important. They've been around since 2011. I'd like to think, have we updated them? Is there something new happening? Is there fabulous outcomes for our community?
Thank you, Mr Chair. It's a good question. The out and about strategy, I believe it's got a review thing in for about 3 years, but every new track that goes in requires an agreement between council and the club. That's mountain bike tracks. So there's not an immediate review for the on-tracks one. I couldn't answer the social wellbeing policy, I'm sorry. I don't know when that's scheduled for review.
Might be something for our committee looking to, Mr Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Delberg. I've had the recommendation moved and seconded, but Youth Councillors Samantha and Christiane, anything you'd like to add? I know it's been quite a meaty document. It was something we've been working over, much less aware of been working over it. Is there anything you'd like to put in, add, if you could add something to this for when it grows into the future, is there anything you'd like to raise from a youth's perspective? No, all right. Cool. Councillor Barker.
Yeah, thanks, Jim. I was hoping someone can answer my curiosity. I've been sitting here looking at this, and I'm wondering the theory behind it, the purpose. There's some activity thought of would take place in this circle of trees. It looks rather druidic to me. Maybe the druids are going up there, I don't know. What's the idea behind the circle? Is there some activity thought that will take place there?
Councillors, this is part of the whole concept for the area, but there will be picnic tables going in, there will be barbecue going in, and that circle with trees has a path in the middle of it which has been prepared suitable for horse movement. So the kids from RDA will come out of the RDA arena, follow the gravel sand track and do that circuit as part of their use of the area. And that was requested by RDA.
Oh, that's good, thanks. Thank you.
So I'm just going to ask a question on that one there. Because we just had a person present that they were getting no space for the average mum and dad and the kids throwing a ball around. And now the open dell is going to be filled up with horses walking around. So where exactly do these people throw a frisbee or kick a ball? Or am I missing something?
I think, councillors, Mr Chair, what we've got to look at is when we decided that we were going to move the car parking off Bridge Street, that this reserve was going to change. That was a huge problem for us. The cars backed up, parking down Bridge Street and on Betsyre Park, and we had to move them somewhere. And this was Brook Street. I got a bit far, haven't I? Yeah, backs up to Bridge Street sometimes. So that's why we've had to create a car park in here. And when we made that decision as a council, we accepted that it wasn't going to be a football field anymore. So we had to retain as much little areas for kids to play, but it's not ideal. It's not a sports ground, and we accept that. I think we do have to look at what we're doing at Betsyre Park, and I accept what the gentleman said this morning, that it's in the middle of the river and a road, and we may have to fence that to make that more usable for kids to kick a ball around. But it's not ideal. This park is not ideal for sport, but if you go up there now in the middle of the day, you go up there on the weekends, it's crowded with kids on mountain bikes. So maybe there's 5 houses that don't have a kick around area, but there's hundreds of kids up there on their mountain bikes.
Okay, well, we've had I'll take one last question from Councillor Forden before we move this into debate. And before I put it, we'll keep it fairly brief.
Yeah, thank you through the chair. I just note on page 160 and 192, you talk a little bit about back to the weed management and how, so on page 160, future demand and the out and about on track strategy, there's a request from the public for greater weed management in our parks and reserves. And having sat through the pest management committee meetings, we've had quite a lot of submissions from members of the public giving feedback that our road reserves are also an issue in terms of creating biodiversity corridors. And I've actually had some discussions with Rosie about this already. We had one submission particularly from a woman who lives on my street where we have very steep road reserve and it's very hard to maintain and it's become very overgrown with, as Councillor Barker would call it, the bad weeds, gorse, old man's beard, blackberry, and a massive issue. I'm just wondering, as this is a living document, if you could consider how you start to look at your biodiversity corridors in terms of road reserve. In Australia and the UK, they call it nature strips. We've started to do that with our riparian margins, with our waterways, and perhaps in the future we need to look at our roads and our connections between our bigger reserves and how they look and feel for the members of the public. Is this the right place to maybe look at that?
Mr Chair, that's a really good question, and we do have a bit of a lack of policy on our street trees and trees generally. And it's been identified through the workshops that we want more policy and strategy in this area, and we're pushing hard for that. And one of the items is a trees policy, and that would certainly identify corridors where areas where we want to keep greened, and that's important.
Yeah, so Forest and Bird were very big on the fact that our road reserves need to be looking at pest management as well, and you touched on it on page 192, so I just wonder, as the committee comes out with the new pest management plan, whether this is a place to look at management of biodiversity in terms of road reserve as well as our parks and reserves, because that connectivity is important to people too.
Part of the puzzle for sure.
Yeah, particularly for walkers who are walking on the streets. So where I live, up above Paddy's Knob, it's a very busy walkway.
Yeah. I think, you know, being a living document, as Paul's mentioned, that's something we can look at furring, we're talking about sort of the natural strips. We've got the recommendation to Council that the Council adopts the Parks and Reserves Asset Management Plan for 2018 to 2028 as amended and reflected in the approved long-term plan. Before I put that, any debate?
Yeah, if I could, Mr. Chair, yeah, look, I'm happy to support the recommendation, and I'm particularly encouraged about some of the direction that this asset management plan's taken. Particularly the ones that I'll sort of highlight is probably the significant investment in mountain biking. That's a huge one, and when you look at the activity, we're way above the national median in that, so that's to be commended. I'm also encouraged by the development of the playgrounds, and I think I have to highlight the good example of a really recent example is the one at the Ngāwhatu playground, the Octopus Garden. That's an excellent example of what the future of our playgrounds could look like, and every time you go there, there are people and little tackers all over it, so that's to be encouraged, and I see that this response is to do more of that. I'm also encouraged by the idea of things like shading and other facilities in public places, and picked up the comment from the officers about getting more community involvement and feedback from the community about in terms of seating, and so when people are actually out actively walking, there's a mechanism there that they can do that, so that's been recognised. All in all, it's probably a big step in the right direction. I'm happy to support it and encourage other members of the committee to do so as well.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Yeah, as we only focusing on this particular committee for the last couple of months, I've got to say, good to see we're actually working on manager plans. Good to see we're talking with all the main user groups, and I'm really more about the recreation that doesn't have a uniform on. So it's more about the ad hoc walking down the beach. Swimming isn't necessarily in a pool, and so I'm more into that, and I'm also more into the bit that I'm totally disappointed here. I got to say, we talked about dogs and people who have them in the town. There's a large number of them out there. They don't tend to make a lot of noise, because if they do, everybody, dare I say, is going to have a very bad pun there, has a crack at their dogs. We seem to focus on dogs that seem to bite people, and all the people out there who have these family friends do not get anything, and now someone's telling me we're not going to get anything for them to, not this year, to the next election they may get something. So I've been in here for 3 years now, and we can't get something for dog use, including a park. We talked about fencing one off with activities for them, the whole thing about there are people who enjoy that, there are people who enjoy being total control of their dogs. It's not about the dog running on the league. Most of the dogs know what they're doing, and most of the dog users do. Totally disappointed here that we are waiting 3 years, we can't deliver. You know, I can get a mountain bike track going everywhere, and I haven't got a problem with that. I'm just saying a bigger user group in here, I'm guessing that 60% walking group, I'm guessing 40% of them, 50% of them have got dogs. We've done nothing for them. Other than that, I'm happy. Just totally disappointed for that piece of our community that deserves a voice. It's not good enough.
Thank you through the chair. Yes, I just wanted to say well done to the staff. I think we have an amazing team in Parks and Reserves. I think you all work incredibly hard and listen and take on board our feedback and try and resolve issues as fast as you make one group of people happy, another group is unhappy, and it's a tricky path which we juggle trying to meet the needs of all our users. I think it's really important to remember that walking comes out, 57% of Nelson people are walking. I think that it's gardening, cycling, mountain biking. I think we are heading in the right direction in terms of catering for the needs of our community. I'd like to think that some of the feedback we've given today gets used into the future, and that this document does remain living, and that we start to look at some of our biodiversity, sustainability outcomes, particularly around weed management, which has come up a few times in terms of the use of glyphosate, and also how we take better care of our road reserves as well as our other reserves. And Yeah, I think that's, I've got one other thing I wanted to talk about, the destination playground in Rutherford Park. I'm looking forward to seeing some detailed designs come back on that. I know we workshopped it recently and I'm hoping it's more natural and in keeping with the Maitai River itself, but also really like the idea of the Rutherford theme in terms of that science theme as well. So hopefully we get to see something on that soon. We've been waiting quite a long time.
Councillor Parker.
Thank you, Mr Chairman. Yeah, I'm happy to support this recommendation to Council on the condition that I've had the assurance from staff that they will look into the matter that I raised in regard to dogs in the future. This is a living document, if we can start working on it. There's 5,458 dogs registered in the last registration. There's estimated another 400, so there's nearly 6,000 dogs in Nelson at the moment, and they are members of people's families. They're family members, and they're very important for a lot of unseen health benefits that they give to people just from the company. So we do need to recognise this as a very important part of our community, and I'd like to see it, and I'm happy that I've had an assurance that it will be included more in our future AMPs, this living document that's growing from here. So I'm supporting it on that condition.